Hello, seasoners. Welcome back to another episode of the Travel and Tourism Podcast, my first season. My guest today began his Club Med journey in 1986 as a circus Joe at Club Med Eleuthera, eventually rising to the role of chief of circus during his remarkable run through 1993. After leaving Club Med, he continued his high-flying career with several renowned circuses, including the legendary Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey. In 1997, he founded Trapeze Experience, a premier flying trapeze company offering classes, advanced coaching, equipment, and special events. And to date, he's helped over 150,000 people take flight. Originally from New York, now calling Florida home, please help me welcome the one and only Peter Gold. Hey, Peter, how are you, sir?
Hey, how you doing? I'm doing well. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to Anthony Salerno for referring me to you. So thanks, Anthony. Shout out, Anthony, because without you, we wouldn't have the amazing Peter Gold here. So thank you. We have a lot to cover, sir. Are you ready?
Yes, Greg. Yep. I'm
Okay.
very excited.
Let's jump in a bit. So you studied hotel and restaurant administration at University of Massachusetts, Amherst. I'm curious, though, when did the Club Med connection come into play? Like, did you hear about it from a friend? Did you go as a kid? You saw an ad on TV?
In between my last two semesters of college in my senior year, my sister she wanted to my mother wanted to get the family together, and we'd been to Club Med before, so she booked us, my family, which is just my father, my mother, my sister, and I, to what was really the grand opening of Club Med St. Lucia for New Year's week, becoming 1986, going from 85 to 86. I flew down as a guest. They were actually short an instructor. You need three people to make a catch on the flying trapeze. I guess I was an enthusiastic guest, terrified, enthusiastic guest. And I did my week. I was in the trapeze show and actually in order to make catches during the week as a guest, I was helping people jump off the platform alone up there, and I was able to help them get through the week while I was a guest.
Okay, but prior to being at the opening of St. Lucia, had you ever done trapeze in your life?
No, no.
So wrestling in high school does not prepare you for trapeze.
Actually, I do credit the intensity of my wrestling experience to give me the fortitude to believe that and the mental strength to that I could accomplish anything. And I really believe that strength, it gave me the ability initially to face my fears and get started. I think it did help, actually, ironic.
Did you have what they call aerial awareness?
No, not at all. Like I was very clumsy. I mean, I was athletic, but I didn't have a pretty line like a ballet dancer, a trapeze artist. I was a flexed foot kind of. I was just an athlete. I was very athletic. Played all kinds of other sports besides wrestling, and no background whatsoever.
Okay. So after this helping out, the circus team at St. Lucia, do you go home, finish college, and then you apply to Club Med?
I told it was actually Bob Christians and Marla Clark, the two people there. Bob was opening the village, the legendary Bob, who was the main director for a long time. I told them, look, I can stay for a couple weeks and help out, but I have to go back and finish school. While I was at school, Bob actually called me and said, "Hey, Pete, when you're done, when you graduate, we'd love to have you back." Since I did do 4 years in the hotel restaurant, got a Bachelor of Science, and my thing was to work in restaurants. I did apply. I did get approved for to be a food production manager at Marriott Hotel at the airport in New York, LaGuardia Airport. But they said, "Hey, we don't need you till the autumn." So I was like, "Great! Like I'm gonna go to Club Med." And I went to Club Med like 3 days after I graduated, like in May of '86.
Because Bob remembered you, you didn't have any formal interview. He'd already seen your work, right?
I never actually applied. I never filled out an application. He just, remembered me from that. Yeah, he knew I did a great job for him. I guess he liked me. So, I mean, I'm sure I signed something in the office in New York, but they flew me down. And next thing I know, I was learning all the circus acts. And really, Bob really kind of, once he taught me everything, including all the children's circus acts in addition to flying trapeze, I was like teaching and doing everything my first season, like really enjoying myself. We had hundreds of kids every week. We putting a circus show together, and I was really busy. Of course, I danced in every show, and I'm sure we'll get to all that. It was an amazing, every season was amazing, but it was an amazing first season. Like, I really, I think I was shy, and I really came out of my shell that first season.
First season, 86, Eleuthera, Pink Sand Beaches, Chief of Village, Yay, correct?
Well, it could have been Yay. Yeah,
Okay.
I think it was Yay.
So since you had already been as a GM, you kind of knew what to expect, right? And you were a GO during your vacation, quote unquote, at St. Lucia. So nothing really surprised you then, right? You knew how everything worked.
It was Club Med as I had experienced, except now I was on the production side.
And Bob Christians was the chief of circus, or he was still like in charge of all the circuses in the North
Well,
American scene?
both. He was in charge. At that time, there was only two of them. When I joined in 86, they only had two going on. Bob was my actual chief and my first coach in my village. He stayed with me, yeah.
And what position did you like grow into? Were you a flyer or catcher?
Well, I did everything. So, I mean, obviously, I was enjoying flying and learning. I seemed to have I had very good hand-eye coordination, which I thank baseball for, like running for pop flies. Bob was a professional flyer in his day. So, and the other person on our team, Sylvie, from Canada, from Quebec, she was a fantastic juggler and she knew a little trapeze. But naturally, I became the catcher since Bob was the flyer. She was a flyer. During the big circus, the trapeze show, I would catch Bob doing some big tricks. I was already catching some big tricks my first season. And I naturally became a very good catcher initially.
You have any other memories of your first season of Luthra you'd like to share?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Well, it was fantastic experience. I remember we used to take down the poles of the trapeze, and I'd carry them over to the pool with Bob. And when we did like a big show at the pool, or like there was a pool show with other people, Bob would actually do like a 70-foot, like I think it was 70 feet, could have been 60, a tower dive built like just into the pool, like just literally like a pole going all the way up a tower dive. That was really cool. Everyone was so friendly. I just loved dancing and being with the geos at night in the crystal clear water. And I went spelunking in the caves in Eleuthera for the first time in my life, a lot of spelunking, going down to Ronnie's, the bar with the team, Bob letting me use his little motorcycle and driving around the island. One time I did inadvertently catch a criminal that was ended up being returned back to prison in the United States. I'll try to tell a story real fast within a few seconds.
Without
There was,
mentioning names, yeah. Okay.
no, well, there was somebody while we were at the trapeze one day, there was a woman was like, "Hey," talks to another woman, "Hey, that's my clothes." And she's like, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "I took it off it was drying or whatever." Like, and so I started questioning the lady, "Where do you live? What building?" She didn't know the name. And I said, "Why don't you show me?" And so we walked up to the building, and she had taken this other woman's clothes. And it turned out like I started getting suspicious. This woman was in, and when you're in Eleuthera and you're in the village, like really, like the only people that it really could be are the guests, because there really wasn't any other hotels on the island. It was there was no cruise ships yet going to the island. It was really remote. There's like over 250 islands in the Bahamas, and Eleuthera was kind of a sleepy island, a quiet island. Somehow this person made, and so I said, "Look, why don't we go talk to the chef de village?" And so I kind of walked with her to the chef, and she was cooperating. And I do remember I had my hand on her arm, which was like, I'm surprised she didn't try to break away. Because when we got to the office, he called the local police guy. They came, and when she saw the local Eleuthera police guy coming, she tried to go through the window. So it turns out that she had escaped from some jail or prison in Miami and somehow made it there. And somehow inadvertently, I'd caught her, and I was given like a free pack of bar beads and a pat on the back.
Hope it was the big bag of bar beads. Okay.
Yeah.
We get back to because you mentioned Bob 60 or 70 feet diving off the rig into the pool. Like, is that what you meant?
Yeah, it could have been less. I don't
Okay.
remember the exact feet, but it was like just he would juggle fire and then just do like a little flip into the pool. And we used to have to set a rubber pad because the pool's only 7 or 8 feet deep.
Yeah.
So as soon as he hit the water, he would swing his legs up, pike them in front of him, and his butt would actually hit the bottom and hit the
Yeah.
rubber pad. Um, uh,
Yeah. Because while you said it, I was thinking of the logistics of it going, okay, that's pretty elaborate. Okay. Yeah. No, I'd never seen that before. It must have been something to see.
So I'm going to reveal a back end story I've never really told to many people. We carried the poles back to the trapeze, but we left them in the grass. And one day, I didn't really know how to rig. I'm actually a great rigger now, and but when I started the first season, the equipment was up, and that wasn't really a focus of ours. But I wanted to put the poles back up because I wanted to practice. So I started putting them up myself, and the poles, like, just it's just the last two upright poles, not the entire rig, just the last set. And I started to put it up and they fell down. Of course, nobody was around, but they're big poles and bing, bang, boom, they came down. And there was Bob, like on the hill right next to the trapeze, just staring, like eating grapes really slowly, like staring at me. And then he came down to me. And this is the only time Bob ever really got mad at me. In all the years, and we became super best friends. He asked me to be the best man in his wedding, and for years after Club Med, we were super tight. We'd always hang out together. He came right up in my face and he's like, "If you ever do that again, you're fired." So he didn't like that. Like, and I don't blame him. I couldn't believe I tried. I just wanted to put the trapeze back together. But of course I never did that again, and there was never any trouble. And
Yeah,
later
and
I
like you
did.
said, no one got hurt, so that's
Yeah,
the important
yeah,
thing, right?
yeah.
Well, he also looks like he promotes you after this season because you're chief of season in St. Lucia, right? You go back for the 86-87 season as chief.
Well, they brought a guy in who they didn't really know, had never worked in Club Med when I went to St. Lucia, where Jose, my next season, where Jose Aliel was the chef de village. And they had this guy who we'd end up becoming good friends also. And he was from Brussels. And I guess he was working in a circus school there, but when he got to Club Med, he wasn't really in the Club Med vibe and didn't like the format. He hadn't been won over by Club Med, I guess, yet. It wasn't for him and left. And then, I was promoted by default. And actually, we brought in Stefan Gaudreau, who was in the kitchen. And Stefan Gaudreau, we had Luc Gerard from Quebec and Stefan Gaudreau, who would end up, he's got circus arts in California. So he ended up, sticking with trapeze for a long time too. But I would be chief and we would have the most amazing, just absolutely amazing season.
And Jose Aliel was your chief here?
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. St. Lucia at the time, was this families or singles?
it was singles.
Okay, so you were still there while it was singles. What do you remember about this season?
Well, this being my second season, I just remember everything was so smooth. Like he ran the village with like it was like tough love. So, everyone was on point, like where they needed to be, and he really promoted everyone having a good time and partying. So there was always a good vibe. As long as you were where you needed to be and you were professional, you could party as much as you want. And, I was very focused on the trapeze program and our circus show by the pool. We would do it by the pool. And actually, I discovered one of the most famous circus geos at the time. The guy's a local St. Lucian who was just walking around picking up glasses. He was just a worker there. And his name was Mark Octave, and he became known in Club Med as Batman. He would become one of the most famous circus geos also. And but I discovered him and really pushed it. It had never happened before because he could juggle really well. And I talked to Jose, and they had to talk to other people. And we actually would have the season after I left, we got him promoted to be a circus geo from a local in
Oh, wow.
'86.
I never heard this. Or, I mean, obviously we all know Batman. I never heard this story before. Okay.
Yeah,
So,
and Batman, yeah, I kind of found him, if you will, like, and really pushed to get him into the system, and they accepted that.
did you pick up juggling your time in
Oh,
Club Med?
absolutely. I became a really good juggler. Later in '88, when I'd go back to Eleuthera, the world champion juggling, the passing guy who passes clubs and stuff, he happened to be on vacation and he worked with me for 2 weeks. And we did a really amazing routine, like where we're passing back to back and jumping over each other and passing the hat and doing all these tricks. He taught me like a routine. One day they asked me to be in the water ski show juggling, and I tried it once, and next thing I know I was actually juggling clubs while with the water ski rope between my legs so that I could have my hands free.
Wait, are you serious?
Yeah, I have footage of it on YouTube, like of me
Really?
juggling and water skiing at the same
Well,
time.
wait, because I juggle clubs and everything, but what about the wind? Were these weighted clubs? Like, how did you keep them?
Well, no, they were Dubais. They weren't the plastic ones.
Oh, okay,
They
okay.
weren't unusually weighted, and the wind was a factor. And it's a great question.
Well,
Only a
yeah,
juggler.
I water
So
ski and juggle. I can't imagine doing it on the water, like you're,
so what I did was I would actually throw the clubs in front of me a little bit.
oh, geez. Okay.
So like a little forward so that the wind would kind of blow them back into my hands. I had to figure it out quick because I didn't, there was no lag time between my first
Well,
practice.
yeah, just learning juggling clubs in your room is horrendous. You're always bending over and picking them up. Like on the water, I can't imagine how frustrating when you
Well, my
drop
first
one.
season, I had Sophie, gosh, from Quebec. That she was a juggler. So juggling was, and then we had to teach juggling every night. So I probably taught all those years. I probably taught like thousands of people to juggle, and I really enjoyed juggling, and I got fairly good at it. I hit a wall when I got to five objects, and I never really pushed through. So five like wasn't very good, but I really was good. I learned a little bit of everything. In terms of circus, so I could really do everything, all the acts, and I wouldn't say I was great at everything initially. I was really good. I wasn't great because I don't know. I feel like I have to, it's always taking me a little bit longer than everybody. I need a little time, a little practice. But when I learn it, I learn it.
All right. So after St. Lucia, you go to Punta Cana, I believe, where Howard
Yeah.
McCarley is a chief of sport here, right?
Yeah, he was there. Yeah. And gosh, there was an Italian guy, like I can't remember his name. He was the chef de village. I had a season in Punta Cana, or was it Jean-Pierre Rock? Gosh, who was my chief there? But I had another great season. There was a lot of kids, so it was back to teaching a circus show and a flying trapeze show and dancing and another great season. Loved the Dominican Republic. Had another great season.
My timeline's a bit different. You said when you returned to Luther in 88, but I have you opening Playa Blanca in 88. So you
Well,
definitely,
88, 89
oh,
Playa. I
okay.
did return for the summer in between
Okay.
going to
Got it.
Playa. I did go back to Eleuthera for another season.
So you were at the official opening of Playa Blanca, correct?
Correct.
What is
Yeah.
that like?
Well, I'm so glad I had it when I did. Like at that time, it really was the tail end of 88, really becoming 89. And it was an adult village and it was supposed to, it was sold as kind of a party village, an adult village. At that time, I was the longest running GO outside of Bob, the most senior GO at that time, and they let me open it. It was absolutely probably one of the best seasons overall. Like it was really, we were doing great shows, and it was just everything was. I was in all the dance shows, It was just I was just having the best time, and Playa was a great village, and it was a great season, another great season. It was absolutely the best.
And you're back with Ye, right?
I was back with yeah, and we got along real well. Yeah.
So had you opened and closed the village before there were GMs? Like, is it that type of opening? Just the GO team?
I do think we were there before the guests were there. Like we opened it like a week or two, we were waiting for the guests. I've been in that situation many times. Now, when I left, it was still open, so I didn't have to close anything. And I did do the opening in 88. I flew out of Eleuthera in the summer when I was doing that second summer in Eleuthera. They flew me out for a couple weeks to help with the opening of Sandpiper. So I helped Bob Christians open up Sandpiper, put the trapeze up and everything.
Oh, Sandpiper, I guess 1990, right? Or no, wait.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I put it up. I think it was is literally because I remember leaving. It was 88, like the summer. I don't know if it was available to the public yet, but we definitely put the trapeze up at the tail end of 80, near the tail end of 88.
So was Playa Blanca like as I guess you had worked at St. Lucia, which was singles. So was it slightly more singles Playa when it opened, or
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, it was probably just a little bit over the top, like exciting, and it was so funny because we were very popular. The Circus Geos obviously were very popular. I was in great shape, and I do remember we'd go to the nightclub, and a lot of times for whatever reason, even though we had like a circus show and a trapeze show on a Friday night, the circus team, I was always on the roster to take the 3 hour ride up to Vallarta in the morning and pick up the new
oh
guests. So
God.
I would make a cameo in the nightclub because people wanted to say hello and see me. But my friends and I would sneak out like the back door so I could go home, like because people, wanted
Yeah,
to talk
same.
to me or whatever. But
Well,
Um,
it's actually 6 hours, sir. It's 3 hours there, 3 hours
yeah, and three
back,
hours
and
back. So
it's not a straight road either. It's
no, it was
a point.
crazy. It was a crazy. It was. But I had so much fun doing that. Like, I would get on the mic and make on the bus and make comedy for everybody. You'd be like, look over to the left side out the window. And I was asked to do like events in the microphone by the pool. Like, somehow I became a ham on the microphone. And over the years, I'd find myself emceeing sometimes, really doing everything. Like, I was really out there, like performing, not just circus, but really letting them take advantage of me in all ways. And I loved it. So I ran with it.
You miss being on the mic now? I mean, I
It's
do.
funny.
I didn't like it then because when you're always doing it, but then when you don't get to do it anymore. I don't know if you're like me. Do you? I miss it. Do you?
Well, I think I was a little sillier when I was younger. I would love to be transported in time back to Club Med again because it was just, you cannot replicate that experience. It just, you can't manufacture it. It's the magic. The conditions were right for the magic of Club Med in that time. And I'm not really someone that wishes to live in a different, I always try to stay present in the moment. Maybe that's the gift of trapeze. Like, the best of me comes out by being present. Like, when you're on the trapeze, you don't want to be frightened or and that kind of thing. You want to be present. So I don't really wish I was. I'm very happy where I am now. I was really grateful. I don't think there's any. I always felt like Club Med, those years after college to go to. I felt like that was my grad school. You know what I mean? That was life. It was like graduate school for life because it really taught me a lot, like including languages.
Oh, how many do you speak?
Well, I speak Spanish and French, and I started to learn French in Club Med, obviously. And then after that season, I did go to Paris because what had happened was I was working so hard for 4 years that I wasn't really developing my own personal skills to my satisfaction because I was either eating, resting, or teaching or practicing to help people. And so we really didn't have enough time to work on ourselves. And the routine of Club Med was becoming, dare I say, the magic was becoming routine, but it was like I really was fascinated by trapeze and circus, and I wanted to try to pursue circus arts without the obligation of being a GO. So I decided to retire, temporarily at least, retire from Club Med and go to Paris. That's quite a story, but I ended up taking some intensive French lessons for a few weeks, and I speak fairly well now.
All right. Well, yeah. Since we were getting to that point, as I mentioned, you went to Paris, but you wound up at Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey. But you had a few other circus troops you worked for, even helped out on Circus of the Stars, right?
Yeah, yeah, helped out on Circus of the Stars and TV. After Paris, I came back to America, and back then there wasn't even internet yet. Like, so there was a trade magazine in the circus industry, and I just put an ad in, like, Catcher Flyer needs work. And the guy from the magazine called me and he's like, do you want to still run the ad? Because I got a guy that I'll just give you his phone number. I was like, okay. And it was the Flying Caceres, who are actually the son, who was 12 years old when I was catching him, who's in his late 30s or whatever now, 40s. They're on the new Ringling Brothers right now, but they're a Colombian Flying Trapeze act. And he called me up. He said, are you interested in being my catcher? And I said, yeah. And he said, "Well, you got to fly down tomorrow." And I flew to Florida. We practiced 2 times. And then I went on tour in the United States, catching my first triple somersaults and big double layouts and all kinds of big tricks. And that was my first tour in many shows. And we had to put the rig up and down, up and down, and up and down and travel. And so I really learned how to rig the trapeze, and I learned how to perform professionally, and my legs were together and my toes were pointed, and I was professional now and meeting all these people. And then in between, they have their own type of season professionally where there's a couple months off in the winter. And I found myself back to Club Med whenever I had free time. They would take me back. I was at that time, I was, you know, people, they knew who I was, obviously. So, and I was more experienced than ever. So and even I would later, I'd bring one of my professional troops down to Club Med to have fun. But so, and then I would go my next season tour. I would tour it in Canada for a year with Garden Brothers Circus with the Flying Alvarez. They were a Cuban troupe, and we started out in Montreal, and we played all the hockey arenas, and I did the Maple Leaf Gardens, and we went out to Thunder Bay, and I toured in Canada for a year, and I also did teeterboard Flying Trapeze and another great professional troupe. And then they didn't need a catcher the following season. They were going a different direction. So I actually went out, my friend, I went out to Asia with the Royal London Circus. I was the top catcher. They had two catchers. You throw the guy up to another catcher who throws it down. So I was with the Royal London Circus living in Malaysia. And that went on for a while. Then I went to California and I was actually in Boston, we I actually went home. I left the show because they said we're going to be off for 6 weeks. You're not going to get paid. And I said I'm going to go home. So I went to Boston. I had grabbed my college girlfriend and kind of brought her out with me to Malaysia. And she'd been at GO. She'd done some trapeze and I thought she could be in the act. It was such tough conditions in Malaysia, the monsoon seasons, kind of like monkeys coming out of the jungle and attacking us, like living in the mud, walking with boots and a big generator billowing black smoke. It was really rough conditions living in a hotel room over a Chinese restaurant. Like it was really kind of rough a little bit in Malaysia. And then so she was horrified. She's like, so I thought I was going to marry this girl, and she's just like, I don't want to take you out of the circus, but I'm never going back to the circus. So I understand. So my buddy called me from California and said, hey, my knee's hurt, and here at Circus of the Stars, we need a catcher. So I jumped in my car and I drove across the country for the first time, to California, at least from Boston. And when he got there, he's like, my knees are feeling better. So, but he helped me get a job. So I was kind of like the last man on the crew. So I was like the mat boy. Like I would set out the mats. I ended up helping to spot, and I would make sure all the stars had whatever they needed, and put the equipment away at the end of the night, and be helpful in any way I could. So I was kind of an extra, but I had a couple roles when we did the filming in CBS in the studios. Like I would spot people, and I got to. And at that time, I was also with the American Acrobats in California, and I was flying. We would do some fairs, and we had a high dive and flying trapeze, and I was actually flying professionally. I was doing some tricks, flying.
Does this take you to Ringling Brothers?
Well, yeah, yes, it does. And actually, when I was in California, so I said, you know what? I'm going to fly to Florida where my parents are for Christmas and, the holidays and see my folks. And I said, you know what? I'm going to go up to Club Med Sandpiper because I knew everybody. And, once you're in the village, you're safe. So I wasn't going to drive. I said, you know what? It's New Year's Eve. I'm going to party, like it's 1999. And so I do remember getting drunk because I was having a great time and I knew I didn't have to drive. And I woke up in the morning and my dad called me and he said, Peter, they need a catcher in the West Palm Beach Auditorium with Ringling Brothers like tonight. So I drove home, like took a hot shower. My dad drove me to the arena and like I went in the back door. I was like, hey, is Bruno Vargas, like he was the leader, like the troupe. He's like, I heard they need it. Can you tell him there's a catcher outside? And they're like, they came running to the back door. He's like, oh my God. Because they didn't know I was coming and they had been praying. They were very religious and they've been praying and like, here I come. Like they always would say that I answered their prayers. They gave me a pair of tights and I climbed up into the rigging in the arena. It was a little higher than normal. It was intimidating. They threw me a couple tricks and I did a beautiful catcher's lock and I caught the tricks. And they're like, "Oh my God, can you work tomorrow?" And so I was in the show, but actually that night during practice, we would always laugh because I was so parched. I didn't have water, and I was up there, and I was making these noises, and they threw me up a bottle of water. They'd make fun of me. But that next day, I did 3 shows on Saturday, 3 shows on Sunday, and 2 shows on Monday. We did like we called a 6-pack. And we caught a triple in our first show, and I caught all his tricks. I even caught what we call a double cutaway half twist from Bruno, and I'd never caught that before, but I didn't tell him. He just told me what height to take, and we did a beautiful act, and they were like in love. They were so happy. And they were like, can you stay with us? I said, yeah, I can stay for a while. But I had actually auditioned for Cirque du Soleil when I was on the West Coast, and Cirque du Soleil said they were going to take me. So I told the troupe in Ringling, like, look, I can stay for a while, but I'm waiting for a call from Cirque du Soleil. So a couple weeks went by and I got no call, and I called Montreal and they were like, well, you're not exactly what we're looking for. So I was like, okay. And I actually felt like that was fine because they wanted to like have people stand on my shoulders and it wasn't big enough or whatever. And they didn't want me there was no flying trapeze at that time yet in Cirque du Soleil yet. I went back to be a catcher at Ringling Brothers, and I would stay for about 3 years catching before I would move into management at Ringling. But those were really the best years. Like we were doing the most sophisticated tricks that I'd ever done. It was so smooth. And for the first time in my life, I didn't have to set up my own equipment and I could just show up in the arena, like look at the catch bar and be like, hey, it looks great. Thank you. And then go out with the guys. Like, and it was just, I was having the best time of my life. And there was just so many, every day was like a magical, it was just, I was just living the dream, basically. And I was having a great time touring
And
all over the world. I mean,
uh,
the States.
please tell me about when you started your company, Trapeze Experience in 97. Did you just, was it just a natural step for you, or did you, or something you
Well,
always wanted to do?
after I heard they were looking to promote people. They needed an international operations guy. For a year, I was there. I moved up. I asked my troop if I could go into management, and they said yeah. And I applied within Ringling, and I got it. And I reported to the senior vice president at the time. They would send me overseas. That's when I learned Spanish. I would live in Mexico City and organize the first tour into Mexico. And I would do other special projects for them in other countries, like scouting new locations in Brazil and bringing performers from other countries who were stuck. And so I was doing a lot of international things and management things and doing the carnet, like, doing the inventory for crossing the border and the security and all kinds of things. They actually promoted me to be assistant general manager at 31 years old, and I turned it down because I was kind of burned out. By that point, I'd been living in Club Med and I pretty much lived in either a hut or something that rolled or moved for 10 years. And I was really burnt out. I wanted to have a normal life and have a girlfriend or something. So that's when I had fallen, my first year on Ringling, I'd fallen in love with a contortionist from Mongolia, and she was living in Vegas. So I told Ringling, look, I appreciate it, but I think I have to leave the show. And they were a little disappointed because Mr. Feld, the owner, called me personally and said he was a little disappointed because they had invested in me to train me to do operations and understand the show from an operational standpoint. And then I left. And I think because a lot of people gave me a hard time, and I was used to the magic of Club Med, the magic of performing. Now I was in the corporate kind of side of things, and it was a lot of nonsense, and that wasn't turning me on, and I missed circus. So, and I think that was an immature move at the time because I didn't really have the skill set yet to handle that. So I went to Vegas, and that's when I said, well, I had all this experience and I wanted to so I put some equipment together and started getting my first contracts. And I really was the first one in America and internationally. I was the first one in America to do that teaching, the Flying Trapeze teaching thing that we did to the public and actually move around and set up the equipment. So, because I was very skilled at that point in setting up the equipment.
You're based where, Trapeze Experience?
Actually, kind of shut it down in the last couple of years since the pandemic, but it really went that long. We were mostly based in Vegas. Yeah, I
Okay.
was based out of Vegas.
Okay. Got
But
it.
I pretty much started trapeze in Chicago and Austin, Texas. I had an indoor facility, I had a place in Texas. I was in Chicago for 12 years in the suburbs. I was at the Omega Institute, the nation's premier holistic institute in upstate New York, Rhinebeck, New York. I was on faculty teaching trapeze there for 25 years. I did their contract. I was in the Hamptons for 15 years. I would do events all over the country. I was the first one. I brought the flying trapeze in for A&E television and in Washington Square Park in New York City. I'm the only one to kind of take over Washington Square Park, the flying trapeze, and brought in a famous trapeze artist to do a show. It didn't sleep for 3 nights. And prior to that gig, like, cause we flew in one night overnight, then we had to set up at nighttime, and then I worked, and I actually caught like one of the most difficult tricks, like without even practicing, and I just such a great experience. I did all kinds of special events, and on really at that point, I was blessed because I was able to have a living just doing what I love.
That's some career you've had. Boy, just listening to you, I'm tired. Holy cow. Okay, let's swing back to Club Ed a bit. Besides Bob Christians, were there any other? And I know you mentioned a few GOs, but I don't want to leave anyone out. Was there any other GOs that you enjoyed working with we haven't mentioned, or did we
Well,
mention
I brought
any?
my buddy in, my best friend. We grew up in New York City together, and I was like, dude, you got to check out this Club Med thing. And I brought Louis Schneidman in. He would become a great GO. He would stay on after I left. Other people would also, a lot of the guys that were my contemporaries at that time would become leaders in their own programs. Rene Gass from Quebec was on my team, and Tihani, and who would marry one of the French chief of sports and live in California. All the chief of villages were great. Hansel Moss, the
Yes.
Hansel and I were tight. I loved Hansel, and man, there's just too many to mention beyond that. Like everybody was fantastic.
Well, you mentioned if you could go back. I don't really ask the question that way, but let's just say if I said you could go back to one village, which would it be?
Oh wow. Well, I did help out in Turks and
Mhm.
Caicos
Oh, it
before.
could be it could be anyone that you worked at. Let's just say you could go back to
Yeah, yeah.
one.
Well, I don't know that there's one that I wouldn't want. Actually, recently I heard Punta Cana burned down, and they sold Sandpiper,
Punta
and
Cana is still open, I believe. Well, I
oh
mean, like,
really?
because usually I ask
You
geos
sure
what's
about that? I heard it burned.
okay. Well, I'm gonna have to go to Google.
Yeah, look into that.
Well, wait, we usually ask geos what's your most magical season. So I just thought I would word it differently. Like if you
Playa
could,
Blanca, Playa
okay.
Blanca.
So if you could go back just one time, you had to choose one, would it be Playa?
Sure, I'll choose
Okay.
Playa.
Well, Playa opening, yeah. I mean, because everyone's always has great memories from Playa, but you were there. I think you're the only geo that's been on in 4.5 years. Was actually at the opening, so I can't imagine what that was like.
It was the quintessential Club Med magical experience. Couldn't have scripted it better.
I mean, you were the first geos to get lost trying to take luggage to a room. Where is it? Like falling down those
Exactly.
steep stairs.
Yeah.
What a great village. Everything was
Yeah.
centralized.
I did. There's one. If you want to hear, I can tell a quick funny
Yeah,
story.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
Please.
um, was it Playa? No, St. Lucia in the second season. I remember. So they said there was a film crew on a boat that was docking on the other side of the island. They asked me to go take a taxi and escort them back. So I went in a taxi, and somehow the taxi broke down on the road near the famous pitons, like these two big pitons in St. Lucia. And I actually walked down through the jungle part of the pitons down to the beach because the vehicle had broke down, because that's where down in the cove by the pitons is where the boat was supposed to be. So, but when I got to the bottom, the beach, I didn't see the boat. And actually, there's actually an elephant that lives down there in of St. Lucia. And there was the elephant, and he started chasing me. And so I ran into the water, and there was like one Rastafari guy in a canoe. He was like, "Yeah, man, come here, man." So I swam out to the canoe to save my life, and there I was, like out in the sea with this guy in a canoe, paddling, around the Piton, which is like a mount, which is like a looks like a volcano kind of. And I would go around the island to Soufriere. They were gone. They weren't there. They weren't at the boat. I jumped in a cab with no money and just said, "Hey, get to me Club Med and I'll pay you." And I got back to Club Med. The crew was there and waiting for me, and I had this adventure that really took like 5, 6 hours at me. And as soon as I got there, we had to film for a promotion thing like over and over for like hours, which later I would learn to moderate because people don't know how much trapeze, how painful it is. But I guess I was young enough to pull it off. But that was a wild story.
Well, yeah, yeah. Wait, you can't drop an elephant story on me like that. So, okay, was this a baby elephant or a full-grown elephant?
No, he wasn't. He was medium size. He wasn't big. He wasn't full size.
Okay, okay, got
And
it.
believe me, I would work with elephants in the circus for years and stuff. So
Okay.
I'm pretty schooled on elephants.
Is there anything you miss about Club Med? Like, if I ask you if there's three things you miss, or
The camaraderie, the deep relationships and the friendships that you make, and the fact that even though I was doing 16-hour days, it never felt like I was going to work. Every day was like it was easy to get up and go to work because it was so much fun. The formula of the circus in Club Med and the formula of Club Med, the way when you showed up on vacation, all these tired people coming from work and whatever, they'd show up and be just absolutely lit up in our space because we were all tan and smiling and cheering and clapping and singing, and like it was just so everyone would be enrolled into that magic. And I definitely was aware that it was something special, a special formula. Club Med had really tuned it. They knew what they were doing at that time. And so I think it was the fun, the friendships, and the food, the three F's.
yes, yes, you're right. By the way, I just an addendum. Okay, yes, on September 12th, 2024, yes, there was a fire at Club Med Punta Cana, but as of November 9th, 2024, it was reopened. So yes,
Okay.
it did close briefly, but yeah, since
Oh,
November
okay.
last year, yeah, it's been open.
I didn't hear that. That's great news.
Oh yeah, yeah. All right, Peter, we're coming to the end of our time together. And my last question to guests usually is, are you glad you had the experience?
Oh my gosh, like I can't even put into words the magic of the experience and what it meant to me. Like it was really one of the most important experiences of my lifetime, and I'm so grateful to have had that experience at Club Med. And those years were really, especially after graduating college, like the ability to just absolutely fantastic, wonderful experience. I'm so grateful to be a part of that era and the development. Like when I left, there was like probably like 16 villages with circus. So we really I was there at an important time and I was doing a great job, which was really important for Club Med because they were still keeping an eye on whether the circus would be something they want to keep. And it really was something magical. And I know we changed a lot of lives and gave so much confidence to people. It was really, it wasn't just for me. We did some really special things for people who came on vacation. So it's just, it's just perfect.
Wow. Thank you so much for that, Peter. Thanks for sharing your story with us here today.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you, Greg.
This has been awesome. And thanks again to Anthony Salerno. Thank you, Anthony. If you have any more XGOs you want to throw my way, don't be shy. And if, like Peter, if you want to come on, I'll reach out to you. You reach out to me, just let me know and we can tell your story. Thank you again, Peter. I'm going to let you get back. Thanks again for saying yes, because I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much, sir.
You're welcome.
That was the one and only Peter Gold. It turns out all that glitters is gold. Sorry, I just had to do it, Peter. I'm sorry. I was there. I took it. I took a shot.
I love it.
All right, everyone. We'll see you all next week. Bye. Say bye, Peter.
Ciao.